had the opportunity now to spend time working from some amazing Mexican destinations. In this video, we're going to share a few of our favorite spots for living and working remotely in Mexico and why we love them.
First up, Morelia, the capital of Michoacan. Morelia is a perfect blend of many of the things we love about Mexico. Friendly people, lively culture, great food, and beautiful plazas and buildings. It's the #1 place on this list we want to return to live and work. The vibe of the city is amazing. It has a thriving historic centro, a youthful and friendly energy, lots of cultural activities, and barely any tourists. Sometimes sitting on a plaza with a cocktail in hand, it feels like what we imagine Europe used to feel like before over-tourism. Working in Morelia was excellent. The Wi-Fi was great when we needed it, and we noticed that many cafes are now welcoming and encouraging online workers. Though Mexico overall is getting more and more expensive, Morelia was one of the least expensive towns we stayed in. Most prices were very reasonable, including accommodations. Despite the travel advisories about Michoacan from the US and Canada, Morelia felt safe at all times. Safer, in fact, than the bigger cities on our list. Morelia has a fantastic food scene and is home to a wide variety of restaurants and cafes, many offering unique culinary experiences. From regional Michoacan cuisine to international flavors, there's always something to satisfy everyone's tastes. Morelia has lots to explore, with museums, artisan shops, and markets, as well as day trips to other towns in Michoacan. But it is a smaller city, so depending on the length of your stay, you might feel like there isn't quite enough there to keep you occupied. We see satisfaction level as how smooth our experience was, as in how often our expectations were met, that things worked out as we planned for the most part, and that we didn't feel burdened or disappointed. And Morelia came through almost every time. We loved it there.
Next up, Guadalajara, Mexico's so-called second city. We were pleasantly surprised at how awesome Guadalajara was. Yes, it's big, but the different areas are manageable when tackled separately. We absolutely loved the stunning centro, but also the amazing foodie scene of Colonia Americana. Obviously, a big city like Guadalajara has no problem servicing nomads and remote workers. There are plenty of cafes and co-working spaces to camp in to get your work done. Prices in Guadalajara were reasonable, but more expensive than some other towns on our list. Having said that, it's pretty easy to figure out where to find less expensive places to eat and shop because there are so many options. Guadalajara felt safe, but it is big and bustling, so you have to keep an eye on your things when you're out and about. For example, there are plenty of warnings about thieves on motorcycles who snatch bags or phones from unsuspecting tourists. Guadalajara is one of our favorite Mexican food destinations. There is so much to explore, so many bites to be savored, so many cocktails to be enjoyed. It's simply outstanding. There are an endless number of things to do in Guadalajara. We were there for 3 weeks and we feel like we barely scratched the surface. Centro, for example, is jam-packed with activities and places to explore. Guadalajara was very good to us, but we did experience a few bumps. In Centro, for example, it can be challenging to find good, inexpensive food in the evenings, and getting around to other colonias can add up in time required and cost.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was really cool. I'm so glad we did that.
Guanajuato is a beautiful university town that seems made for adventurous nomads who want a different experience than nearby San Miguel de Allende, which is also beautiful but more expensive due to the number of expats. We love the historic centro, the lively musical atmosphere, and the crazy labyrinthine streets. Guanajuato just feels different than other cities on our list, in a really good way. With a large university population, it's fairly easy to find cafes to work, though we didn't notice a ton of co-working spaces. Wi-Fi was never a big issue, but it could be a bit spotty at times. Our experience in Guanajuato was that the cost of living was good. Again, the university crowd keeps some of the food prices at reasonable levels, as does the fact that Guanajuato is a little off the beaten path for most tourists. Guanajuato State has had issues with crime in recent years, but overall the city felt very safe. The only real danger is to your knees when trying to climb all those hills. The food scene in Guanajuato was great, similar in many ways to what we discovered in Morelia. A wonderful balance of tasty, inexpensive foods and higher-end experiences. Guanajuato has plenty to see and do. We love their museums and galleries, but similar to Morelia, you might feel like you need a little more after a month or so. Guanajuato rates high on satisfaction as we had almost all good and positive experiences while there.
Amazing Puerto Vallarta has become a major hotspot for expats, nomads, and vacationers. In fact, of its population, 35,000 are estimated to be expats and retirees from the US and Canada. Not to mention the who knows how many digital nomads and the 6 million annual tourists, and you get a good idea of what the town is like. It's jumping. We made a whole video on whether Puerto Vallarta is a worthy nomad destination, and the answer is yes, so we're including it here. Bottom line, Puerto Vallarta is a beautiful beach town that still has its charms, but it can feel a little tourist heavy these days. Nomads are a big part of the culture, so there's plenty of support for them in cafes and some cool co-working spaces. For those working in their rentals, we found the Wi-Fi to be quite good depending on where you are in the city. Puerto Vallarta is rising in cost pretty rapidly. The number of tourists is definitely driving up prices, but there are still deals to be had if you do a little digging. Suffice to say, Puerto Vallarta is one of the higher priced destinations on our list. Puerto Vallarta is still one of Mexico's safest destinations, but as the number of people goes up, so does the risk of crime. Still, overall, Puerto Vallarta is probably one of the safest cities on our list. Puerto Vallarta has a great food scene with many neighborhoods offering a wonderful mix of options and more opening all the time. As the town blows up, so does the food scene. There's no shortage of things to do in Puerto Vallarta, especially if you are into the beach and water activities. One of our faves was jumping on a boat for some whale watching. Overall, we found Puerto Vallarta was a mixed bag from a satisfaction point of view. We had amazing experiences there, but also found ourselves a little frustrated with the impact of high levels of tourism.
Mexico City is not just one of the greatest cities in Mexico, it's one of the greatest cities in the world. The vibe and energy are amazing, and it's easy to get caught up in its incredible zeitgeist. Of course, it's big, like 20 million people big, and so it can be a little chaotic and overwhelming. Of the 20 million people in Mexico City, 4 million are probably digital nomads, so there's no shortage of cafes and co-working spaces to hunker down and get to work. There are a lot of factors in Mexico City that impact the cost of living. Of course, there are inexpensive areas, but most nomads will want to stay in areas that have a vibrant social scene and lots of food options, which can be expensive. Safety can be an issue in CDMX. We found it safe, but depending on what neighborhood you're in, what time of day and so forth, the risk of theft goes up. Best to be on guard. Food in CDMX is mind-blowing. It's one of the top reasons for visiting, in our opinion. Every type and level of food imaginable can be found, often within a few blocks. We never had a bad bite of food in Mexico City. Exploring Mexico City is a lifetime endeavor. There's no shortage of things to do, only a shortage of time to do them. Satisfaction level is high for Mexico City because your chances of having your mind blown are so high. However, it can be overwhelming and exhausting too, leaving you feeling sometimes like you're getting churned in a machine.
We know there are lots of people who are interested in getting down to the Mayan Riviera. Many seem to have their eye on Tulum or Playa del Carmen as a place to go work. However, we prefer the more laid-back vibe of Puerto Morelos, just 25 kilometers south of Cancun. You get the same beaches and chill community, but without being overwhelmed by people who are trying to find themselves. As much as we loved being in Puerto Morelos, we didn't love the occasional power blackouts we experienced. Puerto Morelos also seems to cater to retirees and expats a little more than nomads, so we didn't see a ton of options for remote working from cafes. The prices in Puerto Morelos were reasonable. We didn't feel like we were grossly overpaying anywhere, but we didn't feel like we were getting any deals either. We definitely felt safe in Puerto Morelos. There have been reports of random violence in the area, but overall, the town is very safe and friendly. The food scene in Puerto Morelos was surprisingly awesome with a wide variety of options and so much great food, we made a whole video about it. There are a limited number of things to do in Puerto Morelos, but they are awesome, like snorkeling at the reef. However, Puerto Morelos does have access to all the nearby towns, so getting out of town to go explore some ruins or shop is easy. Our experience in Puerto Morelos was largely seamless, with only the power issues causing us problems. It's definitely worth visiting.
San Miguel de Allende is one of the most beautiful Mexican cities we've ever visited, but it's also one of the more expensive Mexican cities we've ever visited. So if you're on a budget, you might want to consider nearby Guanajuato or Querétaro as alternative long-term travel options. Nonetheless, San Miguel is too awesome to ignore. It has such great energy and it's really a wonderful place to live, work, and explore, especially if you're a person who wants to connect with a large expat community. San Miguel is firmly on the digital nomad map, so there's no shortage of places to accommodate them. You can always find a cafe or co-working space that welcomes workers. As mentioned, San Miguel is a little pricier than most places on this list, probably due to the expat community and the number of tourists, so be prepared to spend a little more. San Miguel definitely felt like one of the safest places we've been in Mexico. Night or day, wherever we walked, we always felt safe. The food scene in San Miguel is fantastic, with a whole range of options available depending on your tastes. Exploring the food scene there was one of our favorite things to do. There are plenty of things to do and places to explore in and around San Miguel. We loved visiting the galleries and markets and going for hikes in the area. For the most part, San Miguel came through for us as a place to set up shop. We weren't loving the prices, but if you wander away from the main tourist area, things level out a bit.
Those are some of our top picks for nomad destinations in Mexico. We have more detailed guide videos for each of these nomad locations in our Mexico playlist, so be sure to check them out. And let us know what your favorite Mexico destinations are. Share your ideas in the comments and we'll be sure to check them out.